Listen, developing a reading culture. This is my heartbeat. And here, lecturer what class in what I'm going to teach today is my heartbeat. Developing a reading culture. I like the way everybody is writing. I said that when we come, I will inspect notebooks today. So everything I do is good. What I want you to just get a notebook dedicated for this, because it will be a reference point for you. It will be a reference point. So that is what I want to look at, developing a reading culture. See, the reason why this topic is so important for me is that, listen, we are in an era of self-learning. We are in an era of self-education. You see what happened recently with the COVID-19? Schools were closed. As we speak now, your time is on strike. You some will go, some will go. I know. Those days when we were in school, I remember when we were just about writing our BEC, our WASI, teachers went on strike for about 3 months. So we are in an era of self-learning and self-education. And if you don't learn how to learn yourself, if you don't learn how to educate yourself, you'll be lacking in so many things. Truth is that many of the things a person needs for life are not taught in schools. There is one book, I will bring it maybe when I go for the next selection of books. The title is What You Are Not Taught in the Harvard School. And Harvard is one of the best universities in the world. And the title of the book is What You Are Not Taught in Harvard Business School. So there are so many things, in fact, many of the things that you need for life are not taught in school. They are not taught in the classroom. Even if they will be taught, they teach it with an academic focus. They teach you in such a way that you know and then we're easy to write exams and pass. It was outside of our lecture and the back. We didn't have a board here, maybe tomorrow. Course outside of our lecture and the back. What you will do is that you tell, okay, so this is the course outline. At the end, you must learn this, know that. Then, when the end of the semester is here, then you hear students asking areas. Then the lecturer comes, so learn this. Hey, degree, qualification, this education, back one. Business will classify So many of those things are not taught in school. That is why it's unfortunate sometimes to say this, but we have graduate unemployment association and so many things. Because under normal circumstances, when you are going through the university, the Russians have universal education. So when you are going through the university, at the end, even if you don't get a job as you would want it, you should be able to do certain things for yourself. But those things are not taught. So the person completes school with the certificates, at the end of the day, has so much qualifications to show, yet doesn't have anything to offer for life. The only thing the person can offer is the course he or she went to read. Now, even in the office when you are employed, the kind of things you do at the office, probably it is just 50% per course. That borders from what you actually studied in school. It is just maybe 50% of what you actually studied in school. Like being as an accountant, for instance, you do your debit, your credit, your reporting, and then others. Nobody will teach you office management, how to manage your office. Nobody will teach you scheduling. Nobody will teach you how to lead a team. But as you go and then you progress, all these things are, nobody will teach you leadership. Nobody will teach you public speaking. But at the end of the day, you are supposed to do presentations. And so two people who do presentations, it is the same thing they are presenting. They say, hey, bako yadi. So many of the things are not taught in the classroom. And so every individual must grow learning how to educate him or herself. Else, you will lack in so many things. And that is why reading culture is very important. That is why reading culture is very important. Another reason why it is important for everybody to develop a reading culture is that the most influential person who ever lived on earth, the most influential person who ever lived on earth, the best leader who ever lived on earth, the most celebrated person who ever lived on earth, he had a reading culture. And I'm talking about Jesus Christ. He is the most influential person who ever lived on earth. 33 years, yet today everybody talks about him. It's not because he's a religious leader. He is the best leader that ever lived. He's the best example of anything you can think of. And he had a reading culture. When you read the Bible, Luke chapter 4, verse 16, the Bible says that, and he went to Nazareth, and then he went to the synagogue. As his custom was, he picked the books to read. So it was his custom. The picking of book to read was the custom. So as his custom was, as his culture was, as his way of doing things was, every year, every time, he will go to the synagogue. And when you go there, you go and pick the book, you go and pick the Bible to read. You go and pick the scroll. So reading was something that was part of him. It was his culture. It was his culture. And in this life, if you want to be successful, you just stand on the shoulders of those who have made it. And so if this person is the most influential, and I don't think there will ever be anybody who will be as influential as Jesus. And so you just follow. So one of his secrets was that he was a reader. He read and read and read and read. Another person who is still influencing so many people is the man we call Apostle Paul. And in 1 Timothy chapter 4, verse 13, he tells Timothy that, Timothy, until I come, give attention to reading. Give attention to reading. So reading is not because you have gone to school and then it is something that you see, reading is a pathway to greatness. If a person wants to be great, one of the things that person needs to do is to read. Warren Buffett says Warren Buffett was one of the richest people that ever lived. And even today, he's one of the financial gurus that we have. And Warren Buffett says that he reads not less than 50 journals every week. Every week, not less than 50 journals. So reading, it's very important. It is the pathway to greatness. Again, readers are leaders. Readers are leaders and leaders are readers. Anybody who reads automatically becomes a reader. The reason is that reading gives you an upper hand. It gives you an advantage by way of learning. Dr. Menso Tabe has said that the more you know, the more you do. So what a person is able to do depends on what he knows. If you don't know anything, you can't do anything. So when you see somebody, he tells you, somebody has said that a person's life in 5 years depends on the number of books he or she has read and the kind of friends he or she has. Your life in the next 5 years can be predictable by the number of books you read and the kind of friends you keep. So a person's destination is a function of information and association. Information and association. So the things you get to know a person's destination in life is a function of his information and his association. Function of his information and association. You are a product of what you have really gotten to know, what you have really learned. and the kind of people you are associated with. So listen, as we come here, as we sit here like that, don't take anybody for granted. Make sure by the time we close, you have gotten everybody's contact. We are a family now, because 5-10 years time, we are the same people that I'm talking to. By then, when we are coming with your cars and the others, you go with the okay, Mr. Mensa, the CEO of so the rulers of the organization, and then you will say, that's my mentor. That's my mentor. That's my mentor.
God has revealed it to you.
Sure. So, association. When we were in school, we call it marketing and networking. So, and sometimes people will say, they react, who you know. Even if you say who knows you, then who you know, the who knows you say. Why wouldn't it be so? Me, if I get to any place and I want people to work, I will pick the people that I know can deliver. I'll not go and play Chaskili. I'll not go and play Chacha. As long as I know fellas can deliver. Why should I go and do Chaskili on somebody that I don't know when I know fellas can deliver? I'll call him. So it was not, as we say, nepotism. Nepotism is when the person doesn't qualify and then you put the person there. It's not friends and family. If the person qualifies and the person will do it, let the person do it. That's why your mom or your papa, you know him, and then let the person. Again, it is results that you are looking for. I remember some time ago in Winnipeg, my father started an English assembly. Then I was looking at quitting my job to start a consulting firm. And then immediately I shared that idea with him. Then he said that, okay, if we are coming home to do this, then I'll start an English assembly and you'll preside. I said, okay, fine. God had his plan. Eventually I quit my job. I did all proposals, everything was almost going through. And when I completed school, I had job straight away, so I deferred my national service. And I said, okay, if that's the case, then I can also do my national service allowance as well. I did everything. Just when the regional director was about approving my national service, and then Anna's going to do an expose on national service. If you remember, then that day they said, no national service approval and whatever. Then I was also having a contract with the bank ready to give me some huge sums of money to do. Then they said that another company is taking over the bank, so they have said that we should put on hold all sponsorships. That female and I say the judge, I was a banker, I created national service and no business and local start there. So I came home. Then we started the English assembly. Then somebody decided to do conconsent. She went to and told one or so for someone who had passed through the district, when we are not watching English assembly, nor then about 2 hours. Then the person told her, Martin, Basa Branton was all going to Papa. Apparently, the same people who were talking when I was about leaving, come and see praises. Come and see praises. Come and see. When I was leaving, it was difficult for them to get somebody to replace me. It was difficult to get somebody to replace me. If he had looked at the fact, say, oh, you better call that it. Call that here, 1990 was a local assembly job here. Today it has gone to EPI, but the people still miss the English assembly of those days. So that's one day. Association is very important. So as we go and we come, don't see anybody as yes. The people that we may eye and we wish to get close to them, we have seen their future. But as we are here, we don't know anybody's future. But I can only predict that each of us will be great. The reason why I can predict each of us will be great is that I'm mentoring you. Once I am mentoring, once you are passing through my hands, you will be great. Amen. So that one day, you don't be saying amen, amen. I remember when we were in the university, then this group presentation, there was this prayer guy. He would come, and when it's time for present, you know how sometimes this pencil and this prayer people can live. Even when they are talking normally, their voice is prayer voice. Then this guy with longless, he came and he was talking about man. So the topic for today is man, etymology. He was praying the next time. I'm praying, you pray. I'm spiritualizing. Yeah. So reading culture. We are talking about reading culture. So Jesus, the most influential ever person that lived, was a reader. Readers are leaders. One of the things reading does is that reading inspires and motivates. When you read, you are inspired and you are motivated. You see, somebody has written a book 19 years ago. I am reading a certain book, The Power of Faith. This is 540 pages. This man died 75 years ago. But I am reading his book today. Why? So somebody died 75 years ago, but you read what the person wrote and you are inspired, you are motivated to do something. As I was at Mr. Please look on the chair. There is a kind of newspaper over there. Take one from me. As I was preparing and coming, then all of a sudden I remember, there were some times I used to write, wow. Then I started remembering, so I went to dig into my archives and I saw that I had about some 4 copies there. Somewhere 2013 and 2014, myself and a friend were into the printing of motivational magazine. This one, the vision is still there. We'll come back to it one day along the line, and then subscribe to that. And then I will come back because nobody has still caught the vision. Motivational newspaper. All the graphics and the way that we have about news, their stories. When we were in school in essence, they say junior graphic back class 1 for stories and so we thought that can't we introduce something that would be more educative, but so easy to read, handy. We just make it within some few hours. We have done it. So we started. So we did the first edition. Sales now there's a grand then we did the second one. So this one was the second one. And in this one, I have 2 articles in it. Around 2013, 2014, I was writing a lot. I had the blog, I mean, that area I started listening and very right. I had a blog and I was writing an article every month and every week. And so then I just remembered that let me go and see if I have more. And when I went to check, I saw that I had 5 there. I said, okay, 5, and I don't need to let all of them go. Let me keep one as a legacy because Inspirer must grow and come and read it. So I left one in the house and I brought 4. Then I was thinking, this 4, what would I do? Should I give it out of free or sell? And I said, I'll sell. So we are selling. But in this, there are 2 articles that I put there. One is The Secrets of Accomplishing Leadership. And 2014, today, when you read it's still relevant. Another article I have in there, one thing you can't be successful without, is still there. So when you close and then you want to buy one, you get this one, then it was 3 cents. You see, the 5 cents. They started, the main kind in account.
Caleb Kuda. Caleb Kuda.
But you see, when you read, you get inspired, you get motivated. And so reading inspires and motivates is very important. So reading culture. Now, let's look at what culture is. Maybe I think when we go along the line, we'll bring for a while and we'll take some straight. What is culture? Now, there are so many definitions of culture that you can get, but one of them that I picked, which shows the very thing I want to teach, is that culture is the set of shared attitudes, values, goals, and principles that characterizes an institution or organization, because you are writing the set of shared attitudes, values, goals, and practices that characterizes an institution or organization. And this one is from the Merriam-Webster's dictionary. Another one says that culture is the characteristic features of everyday existence shared by people in a place or time. Culture is the characteristic features of everyday existence shared by people in a place or time. And so when we are talking about culture, when we say something is culture, what makes us define something as a culture has 5 components. 1 is attitude, 2 is values, 3 is goals, 4 is practices, then 5 is what I call periodicity or time. So attitude, value, goal, practices, and periodicity. So when we say that something is the culture of somebody, we must assess it from these 5 areas. Now, when we talk about attitude, what are we talking about? Attitude refers to how things are done and handled. How things are done and handled. So within any organization, the way things are done, the way things are handled refers to the attitude of the people, and it comes in forming the culture. Values. Values is what is cherished most. What are the things that we cherish within the organization or your personal life? So you can have a personal culture, we can have a church culture, we can have an organization culture. What we are doing has its own culture. So values, what is cherished most. Goals. When we talk about goals, we are talking about what the people intend to achieve, their aspirations, their ambitions, their plans. That is goals. Practices are what the people actually do. What the people actually do, the things they do. And periodicity or period has got to do with how often. How often. So we can say that something a person is doing is a culture when we look at how the person does it, when we look at how the person cherishes it, when we look at what the person wants to achieve with it, and we look at how often. And the how often is very important. So how often you do a thing determines whether that thing is a culture or so. When we are saying that something is a culture, it means that it is not a one-off thing. It's not that you just do it today and tomorrow you don't do, but you do it often. So how often you do a thing shows that this thing is a culture. Now, culture is very important. In fact, one of the most important things everybody or any organization needs for success is culture, because culture defines the way of life of a person or a group of persons, and it determines the extent of their life. Culture determines the way of life of a group of persons and determines the extent of their life. And I'm going to explain this. When we were in school, social studies, I don't know what I'm going to say, it's my scientific, but when we asked what is culture, they said that culture is the way of life of a group of people. Culture is the way of life, is a group of people. But you see, culture determines the way of life. It shapes them. It lets us know how they do that. And it determines the extent of their life. It determines their success. You see, another word we can use for culture is pattern. 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 Now, everything in this world has a pattern. Everything in this world has a culture. And the success of that thing depends on its pattern. That is to say that when we are going to this church or want this church to be successful, there is a way that has been set for you to go to this church. And so if all that you want to do is to go to this chair, then there is a sure way to go there. Pattern, culture. And so you can always predict the life of a person or the life of a group of people depending on the kind of culture they exhibit. So there are so many things in this life, they are so predictable. When you see somebody who will be great, you know. When you see somebody who amounts to nothing, you will know. Because of the kind of culture the person exhibits. Now, Jeremiah chapter 6, verse 16, God was telling the people of Israel, he told them something, and apparently that thing is happening in our world. God told the people, go into the streets, ask of the ancient paths, and walk in it, so that you find rest for your soul. And the people said, Lalai, we don't go look for any pattern. We're pattern again. Now, what was God saying? Go ask of the ancient path. That is, ask for the old ways of doing things, and it qualifies it, which is good. It doesn't mean that the old ways of doing things are better than today's ways of doing things. That is one of the misconceptions we have. It doesn't mean that the old ways of doing things are better than the ways of doing it. But what it means is that there is a way of doing this, which some people of old have already done it. So go and look for how it was done. Go and look for the rationale behind it and walk in it. And when you walk in it, the destination is that you will find a rest for your soul. Finding rest for your soul means that you become successful. You become, and they said that no, we will not work in it. And today that is what everything that we want to do is fast connection, fast network, fast food, fast daily. Everything is fast money, fast track, fast transport,
Fast children.
fast children. Everything is fast. We want papa movements. So there is a pattern, there is a culture, and so the culture determines how. So success has a culture. See, the books over there, you can pick so many books from different authors, and then you realize at the end they are talking about the same things. You see, they have different titles and then others, but at the end they are talking about the same. It is the same, they're written in different forms because there is a culture, and no matter what, that culture will be there. You need to meet it. Other than that, you can't be successful. And so, when we are talking about culture, we are talking about the most important. So, when we are talking about mentorship is basically developing a certain kind of culture in a person, or helping somebody develop a certain kind of culture. So, when we come here, what I am interested in basically is to develop a certain kind of culture in you that will make you get to where you want to be. That is all. That is all. You can have a role model, somebody you want to be like. That is your aspiration. But you need somebody who will give you the step-by-step approach. And that is mentorship. And all that you do in mentorship is to identify what is the culture. Somebody wants to be a nurse. What is the pattern to be a nurse? Put that pattern, show that pattern to the person, and help the person work on that pattern. Then automatically you become a nurse. So culture is very important. So anything you want to do in this world, you must identify what is the culture. If you go outside the culture, it will not work. Now, I want you to understand that the reading is a culture. Reading is a culture. See, so many people know the importance of reading. If you go to evening class and ask what is the importance of reading, everybody knows the importance of reading, but very few people read. It's not that they don't like reading. They have not gotten to understand that reading is a culture. And if it's a culture, we develop it. Every culture is, nobody is born with a culture. You develop it. You identify the culture and then you develop it. You identify it and then you develop it. You identify and you develop it. The Bible says that there is nothing new under the sun, and it is true. There is nothing new under the sun. Everything has been there before. A re-engineering and recycling and one and also everything is there. So reading is culture. That is what I want us to understand. Reading is their culture. Let's take some 2 minutes straight break and then come back. But before that, if anybody has a question, you should ask. Any questions so far? Yes.
Earlier in the submission, you made mention of 2 books, two of books that should be reading.
Okay.
One is the Bible, but the second one you didn't say it.
Oh, okay, so the second is any other book apart from the Bible. Any other, let me qualify it, any other book apart from the Bible. Any other book that you don't can pick books on yoga, books on astral protection. Say that I'm reading a good book before you realize you have translated it to something else. I guess everybody different. Alright, so you can pause the video so that we take some let's take some 2 minutes straight break for some.